Hello, meteorologist Ted Keller, and welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch on Monday, January 6, 2025. Lots to talk about here over the next couple of days with one winter storm still ongoing as I record this. Another one could be occurring in the deep south later this week. A lot of snow to talk about, of course, and the bitter cold temperatures. Here's our satellite loop this morning. This is the IR, infrared satellite loop. Good at picking cloud tops out and being inferred by the cloud temperature. So IR just means we're sensing radiation coming off the tops of the clouds. And in theory, the higher up you go, the colder that is. So when you use a map like this, what you're looking for are these deeper, brighter colors here, like these yellows and greens. That means that the clouds are higher and probably better at making precipitation. Not always true, but in this case, we have surface observations, of course, to back it up, and just plain old pattern recognition. I know there's precipitation underneath these clouds. But it does show two things. It does show the massive surge of moisture, which is a mixture of rain, a narrower band of freezing rain than snow, and then we have this backlash cold air exhaust kind of snow going on here still through Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and that's yet to still move into the actually about due east. It's not really northeast like a lot of storms move, so still watching that. 500 millibar flow, very interesting, very winter-like, and there's a couple things to note. First of all, you have this trough of low pressure, rather sharp. The X's are spinning in the atmosphere, so the center of that is right there about Louisville, Kentucky, early this morning. And so we have a lot of lift out ahead of this and also some lift in the backlash of this right there. But you'll notice that there's no warming out west really. So there's another trough of low pressure right here, and we'll discuss that in a minute. But that both keeps the cold air in this area right here. And also any storm that moves along and taps into that cold air will again produce winter precipitation, a topic that we'll cover in a few minutes. There are still winter storm warnings in effect from a broad swath of the central and eastern U.S. from southern Illinois all the way over to the nation's capital. You saw that there's that backlash area of snow that's still yet to move east through that area. So obviously those areas still need to watch for accumulating snow. And there are no ice advisories in effect, just a winter storm warning with the possibility of mixed precipitation, especially in central and northern parts of Virginia. But the storm is moving pretty quick, thankfully. On the surface, we have an occluded low, just means that it's broken off into two, with one part of it still sitting here just off to the east of Atlanta, and another one back here through parts of eastern Tennessee and Kentucky. The warm front extends through here. Now, north of the warm front, temperatures are still just barely above freezing in central parts of North Carolina, but you get into Virginia, it's below freezing, so we have a few symbols of freezing precipitation, one right there, but then you go to snow here. So again, that thankfully the icy part, the band of that has narrowed quite a bit. It's still a threat, but it's mostly rain, slight transition, and then snow. Here it is on the radar. Now this particular radar loop doesn't discriminate between precipitation type, but you can certainly see it's a juicy weather system still occurring in the eastern U.S. And it's rapidly moving, and you can kind of tell by looking at that. So that's good news if you want to reduce accumulation of anything. So that seems to be working out. Still a major winter storm, but it's scheduled to leave the coast here by later today. Here's a visible satellite loop. I show you this to show you, kind of reinforce what I just showed you, but I just love showing these in the winter because they very clearly delineate where snow is. It's kind of interesting. First of all, this band right here was laid down on Thursday and Friday. And you can tell snow, first of all, it usually doesn't move. It might melt on the edges, but it usually doesn't move. And you can also see rivers and reservoirs, because that water obviously doesn't accumulate to snow unless the lake is frozen, and it's just a warmer image to look at too. So you see some high clouds here, but you can definitely see where the snow is laid down here across Kansas, Missouri, into Illinois and Indiana. Can't see this because we have real clouds covering it still. Here's the snow cover analysis this morning. So this doesn't show snow depth, but it just shows you where snow is on the ground. And 42% of the lower 48 states are snow covered, and last month it was about 21%. So, obviously in the middle of winter you would expect to get a lot more snow, and there's a lot of white on this map. Let's check some snow totals. These are over the last 48 hours, and the first area we'll look at, of course, is north and northeastern Kansas, where the blizzard warning was in effect. Looking at some Chapman, Kansas, 18 inches of snow. 18 inches also near St. George, Kansas. Very common to see plus 10 or plus 12 inch totals through that part of Kansas. Going to around the Kansas City metro area, anywhere from 5 in Oak Grove, Missouri, to in excess of 10 or even a few 1 foot totals near the metro area. And then it decreased somewhat as you head more to the east. If you look around St. Louis here, we got a few 10 and 11 inch totals, but mostly it was around 5 to 8 inches of snow there. And it did begin to taper off a little, although central Illinois from Springfield over to Decatur, 7, 8 inch, maybe a 9 inch total here or there. Indianapolis had some of the higher ones, including a 9.4, but most of them were in the 5 to, let's say, 7 range. And same can be said for Cincinnati, about 5 to 7 inches of snow there. So quite a snowstorm that has and is still moving across the central U.S. All right, this winter storm is leaving pretty quick. This is the North American model forecast of precipitation type for 6 p.m. Later today on Monday. And you can see that the bulk of this has already moved offshore with just some lingering snow through parts of Pennsylvania. Looks like mostly Virginia and Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C. But again, by later Monday evening, that'll all be gone as well. So let's take a look at this cold air. This is the forecast lows for Tuesday. We're seeing anything in the darker purple is below zero, so much of the extreme northern part of the lower 48, North Dakota, Montana, northern Minnesota below zero. On the snowpack, below zero, radiational cooling helping out there quite a bit. And the freezing line extends all the way down into northern Florida right here and down to southern Texas. The meteorologist says. Anyway, let's look at Wednesday's lows. It hasn't changed a whole lot, still sub-zero as that high settles over the central U.S. here over the snowpack and over, again, a wider area of the northern part of the U.S. And again, the freezing line still way down here. So if there's another storm coming along, there's cold air in supply. So let's take a look at that. So here is the global forecast system computer animation of the 500 millibar flow. And this is interesting because this low is coming in, and we'll wait for the loop to start again. We're talking about this storm right here. I can never decide whether to use black or white on some of these maps. Let's try black. That might be better. Okay, so this system right here is what we say digging in, and notice that the center of it right here actually spends quite a bit of time moving due south first, and then sort of toward the end kind of looping around and trying to come out into the southern plains. And so that's a very interesting scenario because if this decides to not dig as far south and to come out a little bit earlier, it massively affects where the precipitation will be laid down. A lot of things affect it, but if it's spinning over Baja like that for a little bit before it decides to come on out, get ejected, again, there's a lot of speculation about exactly how that's going to play out because the computer models don't typically do a very good job with cutoff systems like that. They try. But I've just known by watching this for decades that we still need to watch this closely. What I do know is there's another storm and there's enough cold there for this to be winter precipitation. So this is the NAM precipitation type. This is valid 6 p.m. on Thursday evening. And you'll also note that the surface low is off the coast of Houston in Texas, freezing precipitation, then going to snow. The NAM is at the end of its forecast limit here. This is at 84 hours. So, and again, take that with a grain of salt, but we at least have this storm within sights of our shorter range model, which is the NAM. But we also have the GFS. I'm just going to pay attention here. We'll hit the button and see how this changes between two models valid for the same time. So here we go from NAM to GFS. Okay, there actually is pretty good agreement from both models. So in forecasting land, meteorologists, forecasters like myself like to see models that agree. That doesn't mean they're going to be right, but the confidence is higher if they're both outputting approximately the same thing. So again, this is rain and thunderstorms in the deep south, but a layer of ice and snow. I live here in Springfield, as I've said in the video, so I'm kind of watching to see if we'll get a little bit more snow. Looking out the window here, we got about an inch, maybe a little bit more from this latest storm. That wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like on YouTube and follow my channel, even subscribe. I have weather content, of course, and a lot more. We'll see you in the next video.